I like your microphone placement.
Thank you. It's like a little ant.
It's like a big ant. What's
Hi,
up,
guys.
Paper Cup? My name is Nate. This is my wife, Pauline. We've been married 9 months now, almost. And 2 out of those 9 months, we were in quarantine. So like way more than half. Most of our marriage, we've been in quarantine. It's been a wild ride, but today we're going to be answering the well-loved and frequently asked question, should I give away my first kiss before marriage? And our audience here is the Christian community in general. Anyone is free to listen, but we'll be quoting the Bible. So for example, in Song of Solomon 8 verse 4, it says, "Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." No? And how do you know that love so desires to be awakened? How do you know that it's time, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many ways to interpret things like this. Like, I mean, culturally, back then in Bible times, right, women would get married at the age of 16.
I know.
Culturally now, it's so much different. Culturally, sometimes, di ba, parang people, you know, in other cultures, giving away your first kiss is more normal than it is maybe here in the Philippines, right? Where things might be a bit more legalistic, right?
Yeah.
So the frustrating truth is that there really is no one-size-fits-all answer. When you come to a question like this, no, like for sure, God says, right, to not have sexual relations before marriage because He's protecting us, right? Because we've known so many people who have given not just their bodies away, but because, I mean, that's how the brain works, like hormonally, the oxytocin, and you get so invested in somebody, and you're emotionally, like, you're giving your heart away to someone. You can't just give your body without giving your heart. You know, parang ganong principles, right? And so you want to do that with somebody that you know is committed to you and will spend the rest of his life with you. And you know that the question though doesn't talk about kissing, right? So where would you usually answer or draw the line?
It's kind of like, where would you draw the line? Actually, if I could just flip that question back over to you, when people ask, when should you give away your first kiss or not? I think the question is, where would you want your commitment to lie?
That's true.
So it's kind of like you're on the edge of a cliff, and alam mo parang like isang tulak na lang, just one shove and you'd fall off na. So logically, you just want to stay as far away from the cliff as possible. You want to stay where the campfire is, where there's food, and of course food na naman. Sorry, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, so you'd want to stay as far away from the cliff as possible. And that's kind of the perspective that I have now. I have a better understanding now of why, or me personally, I would advise you to kind of don't just give away your first kiss. You know, be mindful, or know the consequences, and you know the realities that come up with it when you give away your first kiss. Personally, I would advise to save your first kiss because you don't want to fall off the edge. And what do I mean by fall off the edge? I mean that by you end up sinning. You end up doing things that you're not supposed to do. It's parang, alam mo parang when I was a kid, I had this weird fascination with electric fans. So every time I'd see an electric fan, parang it was just such a magical thing for me. And I'd try
Where is this going?
I have a point.
Okay.
No, parang when I'd see it, parang I'd try to like touch it. You know, like when you play with a fan and it sounds like a microphone, so you put your face near it. But there'd be times I'd try to put my finger through it just to see what would happen. So doing that isn't bad, but once I put my finger through the fan, I'm gonna get hurt. And
did you get hurt?
I did get hurt.
I have a scar also.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, we're scar buddies. I have a scar from that same mistake.
And the thing, just putting my finger near the fan wasn't bad.
But if you go too far,
if I go too far, it
will leave a scar.
It would have hurt me, and it did. So that's the same concept that I have in terms of giving away your first kiss. Because after the first kiss, doesn't stop there. And like, unless you have like an enormous amount of self-control, which is very unlikely. Unlikely. You don't want to put yourself in that kind of situation.
Personally, like if you're alone in a room or in a car and it's nighttime, when you give away your first kiss there, it's not just your first kiss that you're gonna be giving away. Maybe not now, but once that becomes a thing and it becomes a habit, it might become, it might start snowballing into something even worse. And again, this is not a sin, and we're not condemning anyone who's gone there, and there's grace, God's grace is for everybody, no matter how big your sin is, and which is the good point. But really, when it comes to that sort of thing and you haven't reached that point yet, temptations,
you're just gonna get hurt.
Yeah, temptations either get weaker or stronger depending on what you do.
Ooh,
we've been
that's good, babe.
in a car alone, and depending on what we did, the temptation would only get weaker or stronger. If we're in the car alone and it's nighttime, and then we try, if we gave away our first kiss then the temptation would have only gotten stronger. And so, take it from us, we've gone through it already, and a lot of other people, I'm sure you have mentors who have gone through it already who would be willing to.
Can I just say, a lot of people think that just because we're able to talk about it so freely doesn't mean that we haven't gone through it. In fact, the temptation was so hard for us. So much that I had to stay at the back of the car just so we'd have some sort of physical barrier keeping us from one another. And when that didn't work, we had to have people, we had to say, okay, we can't be alone in the car together.
Yeah.
If I had to take a grab on my own just so I wouldn't be with him, we'd have to pay the grab.
It was weird, but
it was weird,
but
we had to it. Because if we had gone further, we would hurt each other.
Yeah, ako, striving to live in purity is always worth it. That's what I would say. That's my encouragement for all of you.
It's not natural, but it's something that you work on.
It's not something that you see in the world every day. We're very countercultural for going out on the internet and saying stuff like this, but it is worth it in our eyes and in the eyes of God to strive to live in purity. You have God's grace on your side when you fall, and you have the Holy Spirit on your side when you're fighting temptation and the armor of God. And I know couples who have stayed pure even if they gave away their first kiss and until marriage. And then I know couples who decided to not even hold hands until they got married because they know that that's where the temptation. And so
these things aren't bad, huh?
It's all up to
they
you.
They know where you just draw your lines.
I would say pray about where the line would be, where the temptation would start getting stronger and much harder to control.
Before we end, I do want to give a shout out to, say, maybe there's someone there are some couples there that have given away their first kiss, or maybe you've gone even further than you'd like to, because that's what sin does. You give a hand, it'll take the whole arm. Sin will take so much more than what you're willing to give. And I just want to tell you that it's not over yet. God's grace is ready and available to you, and God is ready to forgive you. If I were in your place, and I'll be honest, I was once in your place, the thing that helped me the most was having people and mentors around me to help me not get into it again, because I didn't want to. Maybe for that moment it feels good, but after it's just not worth the pain. It's just not worth the emptiness. And have wise people to be with you, to walk with you, to help you get out of it. And know that God's grace is always there for you. In Lamentations 3:22 it says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning.
Yeah.
So that's just my encouragement to you guys, if ever you've gone past it. But if you haven't,
I have something to say to that. Right? Sin will lead to temporary pleasures, but purity will lead to eternal pleasures. So choose obedience, right? Thanks for listening to us today. We hope you learned something. Turn on the notification bell because we want to be posting more of this format videos. And if you have questions about love life, about faith, about life in general, please put them down below and then we can talk about it.
Sorry, this is so overdue. People have been asking for this for months.
Right? Yeah.
Finally doing it, promise na. Thank you
For what?
for being a good partner and a good leader.
Oh, thank you too. Yeah, we'll see you next time. And as always, have a great day.